So the title of the work is Isn't It Just a Long Conversation? So I think the most important thing to point out when I'm talking about my work is that everything I make is composed primarily out of textiles that are donated to me by people in my life. So a lot of the time that's clothing and clothing that's been worn. So in this work, we have a lot of clothes that have been donated by my friends, but also some textiles that were actually made by members of my family. It's sort of this kind of negotiation between my drawings from life and a lot of historical painting that I look at and sort of appropriate. So a lot of the compositions in my work are pinched from historical representations of women painted by men. And there's this real reclamation of the gaze that happens where I get to think about what it feels like to be part of that moment rather than to kind of look at that moment. And then it's this very kind of manic process where I'm painting fabric and sewing and layering and cutting things up and sewing them back together. And I think one of my favorite things about textiles is that you can always transform them. Nothing is permanent. I think something unique that's starting to happen with the work for Primavera is the figures are all sort of being swallowed up and coming out of this composition, and really there's like no distinction between where the figure ends and where the fabric begins, and the kind of blurring of those boundaries feels really important. I think something beautiful about the stitch in this work is it kind of operates like a line in a drawing, but it's actually the thing that's giving the figure strength. Something that I've been playing with in this work, and it's going to feature a little bit more on the other panel that I'm working on, is sneaking in these sort of glowing outlines that are supposed to sort of replicate a lot of the gold leaf outlines and halos that you see in Renaissance painting, but they're actually made out of the insulation from like shopping bags, because so many people delivered my sister food while she was pregnant, that I just had this like huge abundance of Harris Farm bags, and I've been playing a lot with those. So I saw this amazing meme the other day. It was like I'm going to ruin it by describing it, but basically the takeaway from the meme is that it was on poetry, but that like art is this combination of wanting to be seen without being looked at. And I think as a young woman, there are so few situations where you get to feel like you're being heard without being looked at. And by making work, you get to kind of have this extension of yourself that exists outside of you and feel really seen for something that's real and honest and has nothing to do with being objectified. And that's really, really empowering. This green moving blanket that features across the work belonged to my gallery. They actually gave me one of my recent works wrapped up inside it, and well, you can't really give me a blanket without me using it. So thank you so much, S&S.